Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister.
Fellow Australians, suddenly and with dramatic intensity, the war has entered a new phase, and we find ourselves in a period of grave crisis. For months past, those who have been following anxiously the course of the war have anticipated the possibility of a German push through the Low Countries in order to establish a base for a direct attack on Great Britain and a flanking attack on France. But it is one thing to contemplate an event as almost certain. It is another thing suddenly to find it upon you. That it has awakened Australia to the grim reality of this life and death struggle, I have no doubt. Inevitably, in the first shock of the news, many people will be bewildered as to the significance of it all. My principal purpose tonight is to endeavour to give you a balanced view of the state of the war. Our difficulties are unquestionably enormous, and our danger imminent. But in the glorious history of our race, sanity and calmness have never been inconsistent with instant action and stern determination. Wars are won by work and preparation and skill and courage and fortitude. We must look the facts fairly and squarely in the face. We must keep our morale high. It was a German, Goethe, who said that the British are slow to action, but once roused, they are tenacious until they achieve their end. The bare facts of the last few days are that Germany, without warning and without scruple, has suddenly and with every instrument of terror invaded the Low Countries. The peace of Holland, a peace unbroken for more than a century, has been rudely shattered, not for anything that Holland has done, but because geographically she lies in the path of German forces anxious to get at Britain. Belgium has known but little peace. For the second time in a single generation, her scrupulously observed neutrality has been swept aside, and her people submitted to death and desolation for no better reason than that Belgium geographically lies in the path of an attack upon France which would avoid the Maginot Line. Every great nation inevitably has some international sin to its discredit, but it has been given to no other nation in the world's history to practice international crime as Germany has practiced it. Czechoslovakia, Poland, Denmark, Norway, Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg have all been plunged into war for no error, for no offence, but merely because Germany has long since decided that there is no law of neutrality or of war which can be allowed to stand in the way of her ambition or in the way of her revenge. We, the British and French peoples, have stood for the law because we know that without law there can be no civilization and no security. Even as I speak to you, we are paying the price for our observance of the law. All along we have feared an attack upon Holland and Belgium. For many months past, it would have given us some more effective means of countering a German thrust if we could have conferred with the governments of Holland and of Belgium on measures of common defence. But because such conferences would have been taken as a departure from strict neutrality on the part of these two nations, the conferences did not take place. To have acted without the consent of these powers would have been construed as a negation of the reasons for which we entered the war. The result is that the Anglo-French forces, in their gallant march to the relief of these invaded countries, have literally had to start from scratch. In the short run, decency can be a handicap when you are fighting indecency. But in the long run, it will prove a shining weapon that nothing can resist. Foul and immoral though it is, the German attack has been developed with great skill, with vast numbers, and with consummate though misguided bravery. Holland, evidently infested by Nazi spies, has sustained an attack upon her rear by parachute troops. Her aerodromes and her towns have been bombed. The German armies have hammered their way through her frontiers. Belgium, with an experienced and gallant army, reinforced by Great Britain and France, is putting up a magnificent resistance, and we may yet anticipate that a successful stand will be made between Antwerp and Namur and Liège. What is to be the outcome of it all? Do all the advantages go to Germany from these tactics, from this sudden attack, or are there some advantages for us? I would like to weigh that problem up a little and give you, as best I can, the answer. First, what are the potential advantages to the enemy? As I see them, she would, by a conquest of Holland, secure both air and sea bases for short-range attacks on Great Britain. With the Dutch aerodromes in her possession, she could send her bombing aircraft to the east of Great Britain, not alone, but escorted by fighters. She could greatly intensify her sowing of magnetic mines from the air. She could make concentrated aerial attacks upon British shipping. She could add greatly to her means of submarine attack upon British shipping. She might, in a desperate throw, land troops by parachutes or ships on British soil, and hope to secure by this means not so much a military conquest of Great Britain as an attack upon our morale and some dispersion of our forces. In brief, she hopes by a conquest of Holland to get the means for a counter-blockade, for added destruction of our shipping, and for a consequential dislocation of the economic life even of a country so far distant as Australia. If Belgium is conquered, all these things become doubly true, while at the same time she finds a means of circumventing the Maginot Line and sees her way to an attack upon France. These are the direct gains which Germany seeks, but there would be indirect gains. Any catastrophe to our arms in the northwest of Europe must inevitably affect what remains of neutral Europe. Germany aims to strike terror into the Balkans, and to create a state of affairs in the Mediterranean which might be thought to imperil our position in the Middle East and leave India, Australia, and New Zealand in dangerous isolation. That is a grim picture, but we will be guilty of desperate folly if we do not look at it honestly and steadfastly. It is many years since the Low Countries were described as a pistol pointed at the heart of England. The metaphor is still true. But is there another side to the picture? I believe that there is. In one swoop, the German western frontier is now made equal to our own. Do you realize that throughout all these waiting months, the Anglo-French forces have had to guard 400 miles of frontier from Switzerland to the sea, including the whole of the Franco-Belgian frontier, because we have known that Germany could not be trusted to respect the neutrality of Belgium, while Germany, on her Siegfried Line, knowing full well that we would not violate Belgian neutrality, has had to defend only the 180 miles which make up the actual frontier between herself and France. All that is now changed. However the line of battle may waver in France in Luxembourg, in Belgium, in Holland. It will be a line the whole length of which Germany will have to defend against the combined forces of the Allies. Again, we have, by these events, added to the Allied armies the armies of Holland and of Belgium. At least 1 million fighting men, together with their air forces, their artillery, their military equipment and supplies. All these things representing an invaluable addition to our fighting strength. There is another matter of immense importance, as Germany will learn, and that right early, and it is this. For Germany to smash through Holland may present her with a short cut to Great Britain with her aircraft, but it equally presents Great Britain with a short cut into Germany with hers, and into that very part of Germany in the Ruhr, not more than 100 square miles, in which her great heavy war industries are situated. Two can play at every game, and the people of Germany may think differently about this war when they find, as they shall, that we can give blow for blow and bomb for bomb. The German people, who have suffered the Nazi scourge to come upon the world, must and will come to know what war means, just as they have made the people of Poland and Norway and Holland and Belgium know what war means. Above all, and this part of the picture, although almost impalpable, will yet dominate the whole, the last vestige of character and of repute has been snatched away from Germany. Her aims and her methods are nakedly revealed. She can never again, while this war lasts, have a willing neutral friend. Every neutral country, and above all, every neutral country that values free institutions and humane civilization, becomes her potential enemy. Those being the two aspects of this crucial campaign, how should we strike the balance? Are we to stand mute as men that have no hope? Are we to look for peace by negotiation, as some unworldly pedants still believe? Are we in Australia, because we live 12,000 miles away, to shrug our shoulders with indifference and concentrate upon the pleasures of life, as if the possible defeat of Great Britain and of France meant nothing to us? Or are we to treat the whole deadly business as a challenge, as an inspiration to show, as we have had occasion to show before, that we will admit of no defeat when all those good and honourable things for which we stand are at stake? There cannot be, there must not be any doubt as to our answer. The tocsin is sounding all over the British world. It summons us to the greatest effort in our history. It does not call us to easy victory. This is no mere passing incident in the history of civilization. It is the most fateful of all fateful hours. We are confronting the most powerful enemy that we have known. Germany's air power is enormous. Her airmen have skill and daring. Nothing would be more unjust, indeed more dangerous, than to undervalue the superb bravery of men who are prepared to descend by parachute into an enemy country. The German army is every whit as great in numbers as the army of 1914. Its equipment is stupendous. For reasons which it is now fruitless to debate, Germany had at least 3 years' start on Great Britain in the process of rearmament. The German is a born organizer, with an astonishing capacity for detailed preparation and industrial efficiency. He immolates himself willingly upon the altar of the state. Germany herself is a country of complete and iron discipline. She permits no strikes. She tolerates no public controversy about her strategy or her tactics. She has almost all of the resources of Middle and Eastern Europe to draw upon. She handicaps herself with no scruples. With her, war is literally to the death, whether the death be of the soldier in the field or of the householder in his home. Against all these things, what have we to set? I have said something about the Allied armies, reinforced by the armies of Holland and Belgium. Let me add to them our unchallenged and unchallengeable sea power. A substantial portion of the German navy was destroyed in the Norwegian expedition. The seaways of commerce are still open to us. They are closed, hermetically closed, to the shipping of Germany. Her foreign trade has gone. Vast as Germany's resources are, ours are still vaster, for we can draw upon the world. Sea power gives us mobility to help each other and to exhaust the enemy. This has been proved before in our history. And above and beyond all these things, that nation must always fight the better, must always endure the longer, whose heart is supported by the consciousness of justice. Great is the truth, and it shall prevail. But, and here is the thing for us to realize with urgency, the most just cause in the world cannot obviate defeat unless we are prepared to back Great Britain with the last ounce of our human energy and bravery and self-sacrifice and devotion. We in Australia, precariously situated upon the edge of the Pacific, are marshalling our own resources, training our own men, building aeroplanes and ships of war. But we know that our independence would not be worth a moment's purchase if it were not that our first and greatest frontier, the frontier of the deep blue sea, is guarded for us by the naval might of Great Britain. Plausible as may be the tongues of those who whisper to us that all we need do is look after ourselves and keep out of the troubles of Europe, we know that we cannot keep out of the troubles of Europe, that our fate is being determined in the Low Countries of Europe today just as surely as if the battlefield were on our own soil. And so I want to say to you and to all Australians, let us pledge ourselves to victory. Let us postpone our local controversies until it is useful and profitable to determine them. Nobody values more than I do Australian standards of life and of living. Nobody is more anxious than I am for a fair deal as between employer and employed. Nobody had looked forward more keenly than I had to years of peace in which great social and industrial reforms might have been achieved. But the grim fact is that we are at war, and at war for our very existence. It is a monstrous denial of the significance of this war that we should be dissipating our energies in needless strife, that men should be prepared to hold up munition ships, to stop the work of producing war materials, to impair a great national effort at self-preservation over some question of 2 or 3 hours' work a week, or a shilling or two in an already good day's pay. Would we be doing these mad things if the enemy had landed in Queensland, or if our coastal shipping were at this moment being hammered by a hostile fleet? Surely we have enough imagination to know that the matter is no less real because the sinking ships are in the English Channel or the fighting armies in the fields of Belgium. No longer can any of us have any excuse for imagining that Australia's role is that of a spectator interested in a far-off spectacle. This is our war, and the winning of it is our business, and that business cannot be successfully concluded by a disunited or half-hearted people. I have no doubt that if the spirit of all the British people the world over is that we will give and give and give until we have nothing left to give, we will win this war and we shall save the world. Yesterday and today the War Cabinet has been meeting. We are pushing on with the great programs which I announced to you only 2 months ago. Our advisers in all the services are urgently considering ways and means of intensifying our effort. That the difficulties, particularly in connection with the Empire Air Scheme, which requires so many aircraft from abroad, are intensified by the events of the past few days, there can be no doubt. But those difficulties can be overcome. We must build more and more aircraft in Australia. We are particularly reviewing our production of munitions of all kinds, in which department we are suppliers not only to ourselves, but to Great Britain and New Zealand. The war has shown that nothing but the best equipment will do. We hope to be able to establish, and indeed have already been able to arrange in some cases, greater and greater increased production. If necessary, we shall draw more and more upon the resources of private industry, even though this means an interruption of the civil, productive activity of some workshops and plants. It is, as I have reminded you, only 2 months since I announced to you the great expansion of our expeditionary forces. What I then said was not necessarily final. Our policy is to do everything that we can as fast as we can. Let me say quite plainly that we set no artificial limit to our efforts in this war. The local defence of Australia is immeasurably more assured than it was a year ago. And because of what I have told you tonight, we must go ahead faster and faster with the recruitment and training of forces for overseas. Let us fill up the ranks of our Army Corps as soon as possible. Recruits are needed. The sooner they are enlisted, the sooner will they be trained and ready to take their part in the struggle. There is also the problem of the enemy within our gates. Effective steps are being taken to prevent the continued employment in key places such as munition works of those engaged in or associated with subversive or disloyal activities. With that measure of support that we earnestly desire from the young men of Australia, from the industrialists, from the taxpayers, from the investors great and small, this Australian nation of yours and mine can make a splendid and perhaps a decisive contribution to victory. But time presses. Let no man delay. The enemy is not waiting and will not wait for us. He hopes that we shall not be there, or that we shall be there too late. On behalf of the government, I call upon Australia to give him his answer.